It's been over 450 days since the military junta took over Myanmar, leaving hundreds of thousands of people displaced by the conflict. Last year, Korea24 interviewed the World Food Programme's Myanmar country director, Stephen Anderson, who painted us a picture of the challenging situation on the ground. This week, we catch him while he is here in Seoul, meeting with government officials, politicians and religious groups. And he has joined us now in the studio to update us on the situation in Myanmar. Mr. Anderson, hello, and thank you for stopping by today.
Thanks very much for having me back and for your continuing interest in the unfolding situation in Myanmar.
As we said, it's been over a year since the military coup. Can you update us on the situation over there at the moment?
The situation remains extremely complex. The many, as you just mentioned, there are tens of thousands, in fact, hundreds of thousands of people who've been displaced. The UNHCR estimates that over 550,000 people have been displaced since February last year. And there's been a lot of economic fallout following the military takeover as well, which caused foreign investment to withdraw, and many banking issues. And ultimately, this caused people to lose their sources of income. And in the meantime, prices of food and other staples were increasing at least 30%. And the price of fuel has gone up by 130%, and it continues to rise, which has a knock-on effect on food prices, but also fertilizer. The price of fertilizer is quadrupled in some areas of Myanmar. So unfortunately, we haven't seen the end of the suffering this means for the poorest people in Myanmar, who were already, Myanmar, you should remember that Myanmar was already the poorest country in Southeast Asia as part of the ASEAN, among the ASEAN countries, GDP per capita, even 3 years ago. And then we've had the impact of COVID, which has been severe, and then the economic fallout following this military takeover last year.
In fact, last year in an interview with us, you mentioned that the cumulative impact of poverty, pre-existing poverty, COVID-19, the economic turmoil and political unrest led to some 3.4 million people becoming food insecure. What is the number like now?
Well, the United Nations estimates that about over 14 million people across Myanmar this year, 2022, need some form of humanitarian assistance this year.
14 million.
Of that number, about 13 million, or 1 in 4 people, are considered to be food insecure. And WFP is is focusing its main attention on the 4 million plus people who are the most acutely food insecure among that group. So these are people who have been displaced or who have lost their livelihood and find it extremely difficult. They're using emergency coping mechanisms, borrowing money to buy food, eating fewer meals every day, or eating, just struggling anyway to make ends meet and to put food on the table for their families.
Those are some staggering numbers. You mentioned how food prices have shot up, especially after the military coup as well. What is the food price situation like now? Can you explain for us a bit more?
Well, the food price, the cost of a food basket has gone up about 30% since February last year. It's something that we're monitoring month by month. The price of fuel has gone up by over 130%. And this has a delayed, but definitely has it drives the prices of food up. Any imported the currency of Myanmar, the Myanmar kyat, has devalued significantly against the U.S. dollar. So anything that needs to be imported, like fuel or even cooking oil, etc., those prices have gone up significantly. So we're very concerned, of course, about the people who spend roughly 70% or more of their household income on food. And if the price of food has gone up, something has to give. They have to be able to either eat less or eat food that is less nutritious but cheaper. So this ultimately has an impact on the poorest and most vulnerable members of the society.
Is the global situation also affecting the food prices? We're seeing inflation all over the world at the moment.
Unfortunately, we do see this situation in many parts of the world. Thankfully, Myanmar is not a wheat-consuming country like some countries in the Middle East, where WFP is very much concerned. Myanmar is a rice producer and even exporter, but even that will be affected by the price of fertilizer, which is rising exponentially right now. And so, and Myanmar imports its fuel, and so also that will be affected by we expect the price to continue to increase. There have been there are power cuts that are rolling power cuts are widespread throughout Myanmar, unfortunately, as a result. And this, of course, takes its toll on productivity, on people's ability to properly take care of especially the vulnerable ones. It certainly even affects our work.
As the turmoil continues, how have you been operating in Myanmar? How many people have you been helping last year, and what are your goals for this year?
So World Food Program because when we see a country that is facing increased challenge, that's for us for us we have to actually step up. And so immediately from last year we started to increase our support for the people who either were displaced by fighting, in particularly in areas of southeast and northwest of the country, but also in the urban areas, the poorest urban populations. So we were able to actually triple the number of people that we assisted between 2020, where we assisted 1 million, to 3 million last year. So that was, I think, was a tremendous achievement, but and that was really thanks to support from the international community, including the people and government of the Republic of Korea. That enabled us to rise up and increase our support, but definitely it was not enough, and I think this year, in 2022, we need to assist more than 4 million people. And now, of course, the pressure on resources is that much more difficult because there are more crises. Afghanistan remains a major crisis in the Asia region, and now, of course, we have Ukraine, in addition to other crises, Ethiopia, Yemen, Syria, others throughout the world. So there's major pressure on the limited resources that governments and the public has to give to support people in these type of situations.
Especially, does it get more difficult as the situation prolongs in Myanmar to continue to get support, especially as it falls out of the media headlines and there's less coverage of what's going on there?
Well, it is difficult because it's true that the Myanmar has faded from the headlines. That there was great attention last year. But when you talk to people, when you talk to the public, when you talk to governments, no one wants the people of Myanmar to suffer and to fail. And we've seen, unfortunately, so many. We had hope that the development prospects for the people of Myanmar were increasing during the last 10 years. We don't want to see that fall away. And this is the moment of greatest need, I believe, for the Myanmar people in recent memory.
Have you been able to get more boots on the ground as well, especially with the COVID-19 situation improving? Last year, you said you had some 280 members on the ground in Myanmar?
That's right. We have close to 300 staff now, and that's a mix, mainly national staff, very effective across working in 10 offices across the country. We also have a network of 35 national and international cooperating partners that we work with also to support our operations. And so I have to say that, despite COVID, we found ways of, and even some security restrictions, we find we try to always find ability to get access to the people. We face some challenges in areas of active conflict, because those are areas where populations are in need, but it's actually very difficult to get permission to intervene. But this is something that WFP has, doing its very level best, working at various different levels, speaking with all parties to try to gain access. And we've seen some improvements thanks to these continuing efforts. So our foot remains on the gas pedal.
You have been in Korea since Sunday, and you'll be here until Friday, I believe. What have you been doing here? Who have you been meeting, and what have you been able to discuss with them?
So I've been this is my second time to come to Korea, but the first time when I'm since I've arrived in Myanmar. I've been fortunate to be able to meet with members of the National Assembly, with also key officials at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, KOICA, members of the civil society, the academia, NGOs. So I feel like I've had a very rich dialogue with these actors, and I found that there is a very strong interest in what Myanmar is going through. One should remember that Myanmar, the people, many years ago when Korea was in conflict during the time of the Korean War, Myanmar actually sent rice as a support to the people of Korea. So I like to think that Korea now is the time to maybe not necessarily send rice, but to stand in solidarity with the people of Myanmar as they go through a very, very tough and challenging period.
That is indeed a very moving story about perhaps Korea's turn to give back more as well. With that in mind, how important is it for countries like Korea and the international community to continue to donate, help and support in any way they can the people of Myanmar?
Well, I think that Korea is an important member of the international community, and so for Myanmar, I think particularly important in view of the historical ties, the fact that Korea is also a member of the ASEAN +3 grouping, which has a lot of political importance in the current crisis. For us, the most important is that the conflict situation and the political crisis is resolved, because otherwise, unfortunately, I will keep coming back with stories of a very challenging situation being faced by the people of Myanmar. So it's critically important that every effort is made to end the conflict, and I think Korea can play an important role in this regard. But also Korea, as one of the 10 largest economies in the world, I think, and with technology and also a very generous spirit, I think can do a lot to help the people of Myanmar, both addressing some of their immediate needs, but also helping to build their resilience in this context.
Well, we hope the next time you visit Korea, Myanmar will be in a better situation. And in the meantime, South Korea and many other countries, I hope, continues to help and support everything that the World Food Programme does. We'll wrap it up there with speaking to the Myanmar Country Director of the World Food Programme, Stephen Anderson. Thank you once again for your time today.
Thank you so much for your interest, and I hope that we can invite you to see the situation on the ground in Myanmar sometime soon.